Maya stood in the old flower shop, surrounded by wilting roses. The light was fading through dusty windows. "It's a lie, isn't it?" she said quietly. "This idea that I can design lasting connection, that if I just control enough variables, people won't hurt each other, won't leave." Ethan came up behind her, not touching, just present. "I've been trying so hard to make everything perfect," Maya continued, "trying to convince myself I can save things. But the truth is," her voice caught, "some things end, and I can't stop them." "And you're afraid," Ethan said softly, "that if you can't prevent endings, then you can't save anything, can't save anyone." "Yes," the word came out broken. He reached out and took her hand. "You help because you care," he said, "not because you have all the answers." The last light faded through the windows, turning everything soft and blue. His phone buzzed during the fourth essay on Hamlet. Ethan Cole glanced at the screen. Derek, calling at 8:30 on a Friday night. "Tell me it's going well," Ethan said, pen still marking margin notes. "The bathroom's flooded." Derek's voice came sharp through the speaker. "She locked herself in the coat check. This was a terrible idea." Ethan set the pen down. Papers slid to the floor, forgotten. "What do you mean, flooded?" "Water everywhere. The manager's screaming about pipes. Tessa, Claire, whatever her name is, she's crying, and I don't know what I did wrong." The panic in Derek's voice cut through the usual measured calm. Ethan was already grabbing his keys. "Stay there. Don't leave. I'm coming." "Her friend's on the way too, the one who set this up." Ethan paused at the door. "The matchmaker. The one Derek said designed the perfect evening down to the playlist." "Great," Ethan muttered. He could already picture her, someone who believed in signs and serendipity, and probably consulted the stars before making dinner reservations. Outside, the November air bit cold against his face. The restaurant glowed warm through rain-streaked windows. Maya Foster pulled into the parking lot 20 minutes after Claire's text. 3 words, all caps. "Help, please, now." She pushed through the heavy door into chaos. Water spread across the tile floor in dark, glistening sheets. A server stood frozen with a tray. The manager barked instructions into a phone while pointing at the hallway. Maya's heels splashed as she crossed toward the restrooms. The cold seeped through her socks immediately. She'd worn the good shoes tonight, the ones she saved for her own events, thinking she'd just drop Claire off and leave. That optimism felt distant now. "Claire?" She knocked on the coat check door. "It's me." A muffled sound came from inside. Not quite crying, but close. "I'm opening the door, okay?" The small room smelled like wet wool and expensive perfume. Claire sat on the floor between winter coats, knees pulled to her chest. Her mascara had run in gray streaks down both cheeks. Maya knelt beside her, ignoring the dampness seeping into her dress. She didn't say anything. Sometimes silence worked better than questions. "The bathroom sink broke," Claire finally said. Her voice came out flat. "Derek tried to fix it. Water went everywhere. The manager came in yelling and I couldn't." "Okay." He kept asking me questions, Maya, like an interview, about my goals, my biggest fear, what I wanted from life. Claire's hands twisted the hem of her dress. "I don't even know what I want for breakfast tomorrow." Maya pulled off her jacket and draped it over Claire's shoulders. The restaurant's heating fought against the cold draft from somewhere. "Losing. I shouldn't have pushed you into this," Maya said quietly. I know what you thought." Claire leaned her head back against the wall. "Perfect venue, perfect timing, stars aligning. You were so excited." The words sat heavy between them. Maya had been excited. She'd spent 3 days researching Derek after his friend reached out through her website. Compatibility looked good on paper. Claire needed to get back out there. Everything pointed to yes. Except now Claire was hiding in a coat check while water damage spread through an upscale bistro. "Where's Derek?" Maya asked. "Outside. His friend's coming too, the one who set this up from his end." Something cold settled in Maya's stomach. "His friend's here?" "On the way." Derek called him from the parking lot. Maya stood, smoothing her dress. Water had soaked through the knees, leaving dark marks. Her careful planning, The candlelit table by the window, the wine pairing, the playlist she'd sent to the manager. All of it sat ruined somewhere in the chaos behind them. "Stay here as long as you need," Maya said. "I'll handle the rest." "You're going to meet him? Derek's friend?" "Someone has to deal with this mess." Maya stepped back into the hallway. The manager had stopped yelling, but stood near the bar with crossed arms, watching staff mop the floor. The restaurant's warmth felt false now, like stage lighting after the show ended badly. Through the front windows, she could see two figures standing in the parking lot. Derek paced near a sedan. The other man stood still, hands in his coat pockets, breath visible in the November air. Maya pushed through the door. The cold bit immediately, sharp after the restaurant's manufactured comfort. The man turned as she approached. Tall, dark hair slightly disheveled from the wind, wearing an expression somewhere between concerned and frustrated. "You must be the other matchmaker," he said. His tone carried no warmth. Maya lifted her chin slightly. "Maya Foster, and you are?" "Ethan Cole." He glanced past her toward the restaurant. "How bad is it?" "The bathroom's flooded. Claire's upset. Your friend apparently conducted a psychological evaluation instead of a date." Ethan's jaw tightened. Derek asked questions. He's trying to connect. He's trying to qualify her for a position. Maya kept her voice level. This was supposed to be dinner, not a job interview. "Right. Much better to stage manage everything down to the background music." His eyes met hers, because that's authentic. The rain had stopped, but the air held its weight. Derek shifted uncomfortably nearby, looking between them. Maya felt heat rise in her chest despite the cold. She'd driven across town, ruined her shoes, and found her best friend crying on a floor. And this man, this stranger, thought he could criticize her approach? "At least I create an atmosphere," she said quietly. "I give people a foundation to build from." "You give them theater." Ethan's voice stayed calm, which somehow made it worse. "And when reality doesn't match your staging, it falls apart." The parking lot lights cast long shadows across the wet pavement between them. "So we're assigning blame now?" Maya crossed her arms. The cold worked its way through her dress, but she refused to shiver. "I'm trying to understand what happened." Ethan kept his hands in his pockets, measured, controlled. Derek prepared for tonight. He wanted to know her. He interrogated her. He asked about her life. During the first 30 minutes, Maya glanced toward the restaurant where staff still moved behind fogged windows, before the appetizers arrived, before she had a chance to even relax. Derek cleared his throat. "Maybe I should. You should go home," Ethan said, not unkindly. "We'll figure this out." After Derek left, the parking lot felt larger, quieter. A car alarm chirped in the distance, muted by the buildings between. Ethan turned back to Maya. "What would you have done differently?" "I would have let them talk about nothing first." She met his gaze. "Weather, the restaurant, easy things. Let the pressure drop before diving into emotional archaeology. Superficial conversation doesn't build connection. Neither does making someone feel like they're defending a thesis." Maya's voice rose slightly despite her intention to stay calm. "Claire just got out of a 3-year relationship. She's fragile right now. She needed gentle. Then maybe she wasn't ready to date." The words hit like cold water. Maya felt her breath catch. Because he was right. God, he was right. And she'd known it 3 days ago when Claire agreed to this. Known it and pushed anyway because the match looked perfect on paper. She said yes. Maya finally answered, weaker than she wanted. "Because you asked her." Ethan's tone softened slightly. "Look, I'm not trying to. Derek's been asking me to help him meet someone for months. When your listing came through my network, I thought maybe it could work. But I told him to take it slow, to listen more than he planned." "Did you tell him to ask about her biggest fears?" That's actually a good question for building intimacy. On a first date? When else? Ethan tilted his head. People waste months on small talk and wonder why relationships stay surface level. Maya stared at him. Rain had started again, so light it was almost mist. The drops caught in the parking lot lights like tiny stars falling wrong. "You really believe that?" she said. "You think you can just skip past all the getting to know you and jump straight to the deep end?" "I think most people are scared of real connection. They hide behind weather and wine pairings because it's safe." And you think forcing vulnerability creates trust. I think avoiding it creates nothing. Her phone buzzed. A text from Claire. Can you take me home? Maya looked up at Ethan. He'd pulled his hands from his pockets, and she noticed for the first time that he wasn't wearing gloves. His fingers looked red from the cold. I need to get Claire, she said. Right, he nodded. I should go too. Neither of them moved immediately. The restaurant's light spilled across the wet pavement between them, turning the water gold and then dark. For what it's worth, Ethan said quietly. I hope she's okay. Something in his voice caught Maya off guard. Genuine concern, not the argumentative edge from before. She will be. Maya turned toward the restaurant. Eventually. Maya? She glanced back. This wasn't your fault. She wanted to believe him. Instead, she just nodded and walked away. The rain fell harder as she reached the door, turning the night soft and blurred at the edges. Maya's apartment held the day's warmth, even though she'd been gone for hours. She dropped her keys on the entry table and didn't bother turning on the main lights. Claire had been quiet the whole drive home. Maya had walked her up to her apartment, made sure she had tea and her favorite blanket, and left without pushing for conversation. Sometimes friendship meant just being present without fixing things. Now Maya stood in her own kitchen, staring at the matchmaking journal open on the counter. She'd started keeping it 2 years ago when her boss suggested she try coordinating dates alongside events. You're so good at creating moments, she'd said. Why not create connections? The journal held careful notes, compatibility factors, conversation starters organized by personality type, a whole section on atmospheric design, lighting, music, table placement. Everything mattered. Every detail contributed to the story two people would tell about how they met. Except tonight's story ended with flooding and tears. Maya closed the journal and moved to the window. Her apartment overlooked a small courtyard where someone had strung lights through the trees. They glowed warm against the cold November dark, reflecting in puddles left by rain. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She'd silenced it after the third text from Claire, apologizing. Now she picked it up and saw a notification from the forum she frequented. Philosophy of Modern Matchmaking, a pretentious name for a surprisingly thoughtful group. Chen M. had replied to her post from last week, the one about creating romantic scaffolding. Scaffolding implies the structure is temporary, removed once the building stands on its own. But if the connection can't exist without your staging, what have you really built? The foundation matters more than the decoration. Maya had been debating with Chen M for 3 months now. They disagreed on almost everything. She advocated for emotional design, for crafting experiences that let people show up as their best selves. He pushed for radical honesty, for stripping away comfort in favor of authentic exposure. Their arguments had become something she looked forward to, sharp but respectful, challenging without being cruel. Sometimes she'd catch herself thinking about his responses while coordinating events, wondering what he'd say about her choices. She typed back now. The foundation matters, yes, but so does the first impression. So does feeling safe enough to be vulnerable. You can't demand authenticity. You create space for it. She hit send and set the phone down. The apartment felt too quiet, too warm. She opened the window slightly, letting cold air move through the room. On her refrigerator, held by a magnet from her mother's flower shop, was a photo from last month. Her mom standing behind the counter, surrounded by white roses and eucalyptus, smiling despite knowing the shop would likely close by spring. 23 years in the same location, and the neighborhood had changed around it. The rent had tripled. The customers had shifted to online ordering. Maya had offered to help with a rebrand, a social media campaign. Her mother had just shaken her head. Some things end, honey. That's okay. But Maya didn't think it was okay. Didn't think giving up was the answer when you could still fight for something worth keeping. Her phone buzzed again. Chen_M, responding already. Fair point. Maybe we're both half right. Maya smiled despite the weight of the evening settling across her shoulders. The lights in the courtyard swayed slightly in the wind, casting moving shadows through her window. The coffee shop dinged as Maya entered. She spotted Ethan immediately. Corner table, laptop open, expression concentrated. He looked up as she approached, and something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe, or resignation. Derek texted me, Maya said, pulling out the chair across from him. Said you two were meeting here, that I should come. Claire sent me the same message. Ethan closed his laptop. About you. Maya set her bag down. The coffee shop smelled like espresso and rain-damp coats. Saturday afternoon light came through the windows at an angle, turning everything slightly gold. They planned this, she said. Apparently, he signaled to the barista. You want something? Americano, black. After the barista brought their drinks, they sat in silence for a moment. Maya wrapped her hands around the warm ceramic cup. Her fingers still felt cold from the walk over, even though it was only 3 blocks. Claire called me this morning, Maya finally said. She's okay. Embarrassed, but okay. Derek, too. Ethan took a sip of his coffee. He feels terrible. Keeps saying he ruined everything. He didn't ruin anything. The situation just, Maya paused, searching for the right word, collapsed. Because we built it wrong? Because we built it differently, and those differences didn't work together. Ethan leaned back in his chair. He'd shaved since last night, Maya noticed, changed into a gray sweater that looked comfortable, less defensive than his posture in the parking lot. What did Claire say? He asked. About why she agreed to go? Maya traced the rim of her cup with one finger. She said I was so excited that she didn't want to disappoint me. That's not consent, that's compliance. I know. The words came out quieter than Maya intended. I know, and I should have seen it. Should have asked better questions instead of just creating the perfect conditions. She looked up sharply, but Ethan's expression held no judgment, just tired understanding. Derek did the same thing, he continued. Asked me what he should talk about. I gave him a list. Emotional intimacy accelerators. Questions proven to build connection. He rubbed his forehead. God, I actually used the phrase proven to build connection. You sound like a research paper. I am a research paper. That's my problem. He met her eyes. I thought if I could give Derek a framework, if I could help him understand the psychology of attachment, he'd be less likely to get hurt. Instead, I turned him into someone conducting a study. Maya felt something shift in her chest. This man, this stranger who'd argued with her in a parking lot, suddenly seemed less like an opponent and more like someone fighting the same losing battle from a different direction. What did your text from Derek say exactly? She asked. His message to me just said, coffee shop, 2 p.m., Maya's coming. Ethan pulled out his phone and showed her. The message read, coffee shop at 2. Her name is Maya Foster. You two need to talk. Maya's breath caught. She pulled out her own phone, hands suddenly unsteady. Claire's text. Coffee shop at 2. His username is Chen_M. I figured it out last night. The noise of the coffee shop seemed to recede. Maya looked up at Ethan, whose expression had gone very still. Chen_M, she said slowly. The forum about matchmaking philosophy. M. Forrester. His voice came out rough. You're M. Forrester, the one who argues that emotional design isn't manipulation. And you're the one who thinks vulnerability is a first date requirement. They stared at each other across the small table. The afternoon light caught in Ethan's coffee cup, turning the surface bright and then dark. Outside, someone's laugh carried through the closed door, muffled and distant. How long? Maya asked. Her voice sounded strange in her own ears, too thin. How long have I been on the forum? Ethan set his phone down carefully, like it might break. About 8 months. You? Since it started. I'm one of the founding members. I know. I've read every post you've written. The admission hung between them. Maya felt her pulse in her throat. She'd read his posts too, analyzed his arguments, stayed up late crafting responses that would challenge without dismissing. She'd wondered about him, about what kind of person could articulate connection theory so well while seemingly pushing for such uncomfortable application. Last week, she said, the thread about first date pressure, you said that we set people up to perform instead of connect, Ethan finished. that all the staging and atmosphere is just elaborate lying. I called you cynical. You called me emotionally avoidant. He almost smiled, which was fair, actually. Maya's hands had gone cold despite the warm cup. She pulled them back into her lap. The coffee shop had gotten busier, voices layered over each other, the espresso machine hissing, chairs scraping against old wood floors. But it all felt distant, like she was underwater. I thought you were a woman, Ethan said quietly. The username, the way you wrote. I had this whole picture in my head. I thought you were older, retired therapist maybe, someone who'd given up on romance and decided everyone else should too. That's harsh. You started a thread called The Myth of the Perfect First Date. It is a myth, but his voice held less conviction than his words usually did in their debates. Isn't it? Maya didn't answer immediately. She watched steam rise from her untouched coffee. Someone had written something in the foam, a leaf maybe, or a heart, already dissolving. I don't know anymore, she admitted. Last night I was so sure. So certain that if I could just create the right environment, give Claire and Derek the right foundation, they'd be able to build something. But maybe you were right. Maybe I was just creating theater. Or maybe I pushed people too hard too fast. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck. Derek said something this morning. He said he felt like he had to perform, like he had to prove he could handle depth and vulnerability and all these concepts I'd talked about, that he couldn't just be nervous, be awkward, be himself on a first date. We both messed up. Spectacularly. Maya finally looked directly at him. Really looked. The way he held his shoulders slightly tense, like he was bracing for something. The way his fingers tapped against the table once, twice, then stopped when he noticed. The small scar above his left eyebrow that she couldn't have known about from words on a screen. I liked our arguments, she said suddenly, on the forum. I looked forward to them. Me too. He leaned forward slightly. You made me defend positions I wasn't sure I believed. Made me think harder. You did the same thing. The afternoon had shifted while they talked. The light through the windows had gone from gold to gray, and Maya realized with a start that they'd been here for over an hour, that her coffee had gone completely cold. What do we do now? She asked. Derek and Claire clearly think that we should talk, work together maybe. Ethan picked up his cup, then set it down again without drinking. What do you think about that? Maya felt something in her chest pull tight. This morning she'd been so sure about how the world worked, about her approach, about the careful line between helpful and controlling. Now everything felt uncertain, uncomfortable, but also interesting, electric in a way that made her want to lean forward instead of away. I think, she said slowly, that we should probably try. Try what? I don't know yet. Ethan smiled then, small and genuine. That might be the least controlled thing I've ever heard you say. Steam continued to rise from their abandoned cups, curling up toward the ceiling and disappearing into the warm air above them. Maya walked home in the early dusk. The temperature had dropped since afternoon, and her breath fogged in small clouds. She'd stayed at the coffee shop another hour after their revelation, talking about everything except matchmaking. Books, Portland's weather, the best hiking trails within an hour's drive. It had been easy, easier than it should have been with someone who'd spent 3 months challenging every position she took online. Now she pulled her coat tighter and watched streetlights flicker on one by one down her block. Someone had already started decorating for Christmas. Blue lights wrapped around a porch railing, reflecting in windows across the street. Her phone buzzed. Ethan. Made it home. Still processing that the person I've been debating with for months lives 8 blocks away. Maya stopped walking. 8 blocks. They'd been this close the whole time. Could have passed each other at the grocery store, the coffee shop, any of the dozens of places their lives might have briefly touched. She typed back, and still disagreed about almost everything. His response came quickly. That's what made it interesting. Maya's apartment building came into view. The courtyard lights were on again, warm against the cold evening. She thought about going upstairs to her journal, to all those careful notes about creating perfect moments, about how much of her approach came from watching her parents' marriage collapse, how much of her need to control and design and orchestrate came from feeling like if she could just get the details right, nothing would fall apart. Another text. Can I ask you something? Maya, go ahead. Ethan, why do you care so much about making things perfect? She stood at her building's entrance, key in hand. The question sat heavy in the cold air. She could deflect, could give him the professional answer about event coordination and attention to detail, but Maya smiled and pushed through the door into her building's warmth. The courtyard lights cast long shadows across the empty walkway behind her. This was Claire's idea, not mine. Maya set her bag on the table. Different coffee shop, same afternoon light. A week had passed since their revelation. They texted sporadically, carefully. Derek's convinced we can help them process what happened. Ethan had arrived first, claimed a corner booth, more private than last time. He thinks talking it through will give them closure. Closure from a date that lasted 40 minutes? Apparently those 40 minutes made an impact. Maya slid into the booth across from him. The coffee shop was quieter than their usual spot. Jazz played low through speakers she couldn't see. Someone had hung paper snowflakes in the windows, even though Thanksgiving hadn't happened yet. Have you talked to Claire? Ethan asked. Every day. She's okay. Embarrassed still, but okay. Maya traced a pattern on the table. She said the disaster actually helped, made her realize she was going through motions to please me. Derek said something similar, that the pressure to perform made him see he's been performing for everyone, not just on dates. They looked at each other. Something unspoken passed between them, the recognition that their approaches had backfired in identical ways, just from opposite directions. So what now? Maya asked. Do we actually try to help them, or do we admit we're the problem? Can it be both? That's very dialectical of you. Ethan almost smiled. I've been reading your posts about synthesis, the idea that opposing approaches might inform each other. You've been reading my posts from before we knew who we were. Fair point, he leaned back. But the ideas still hold, don't they? Maya didn't answer immediately. The jazz shifted to something softer, colder outside. She could see people walking past, bundled in scarves and heavy coats, their breath visible in the early December air. I've been thinking about what you said, she offered finally, about scaffolding, about whether I'm building foundations or just creating elaborate illusions. And I don't know yet, but I want to find out. Ethan's expression shifted, something warmer than she'd seen from him before. Claire and Derek both said they'd be willing to meet, together, if we facilitated. Facilitated how? I was hoping we could figure that out, together. The word hung between them. Together. Not competing, not defending positions, actually collaborating despite every instinct they had to protect their different philosophies. What would that even look like? Maya asked. I don't know. Maybe we start by agreeing on what went wrong. The bathroom flooding was a pretty clear signal. Before that, Ethan leaned forward. Derek said the questions felt like tests. Claire said the atmosphere felt like a stage. They were both trying to meet expectations instead of just meeting each other. Maya felt the truth of it settle uncomfortably. So we both created pressure. Just different kinds. Right. My approach demanded vulnerability too fast. Yours demanded performance of a certain aesthetic. When you say it like that, we both sound terrible. Or we both care. We just care loudly in opposite directions. A couple came in from the cold, shaking rain off their coats. The barista greeted them like old friends. Easy conversation, no visible effort. What if we tried something different? Maya said slowly, the idea forming as she spoke. What if we helped them have a conversation with no expectations? No structure from me, no deep questions from you. Just space. Space for what? For whatever happens. Ethan looked at her for a long moment. The jazz played on. Rain started again outside, soft against the windows. That terrifies you, doesn't it? He said quietly. The idea of creating space without controlling what fills it. Yes, the admission came easier than it should have, but you're terrified of the opposite, of letting things stay surface level, of people missing each other because nobody asked the hard questions. Also, yes, they sat with that truth, Two people so afraid of different kinds of failing that they'd built entire philosophies around never risking those particular failures. So maybe we're both half right, Maya said. You said that once before, on the forum. You remembered. I remember most of what you write. Something in Maya's chest pulled tight. Outside, the rain fell harder, blurring the streetlights into soft gold smears against the darkening afternoon. The high school gym smelled like floor wax and teenage anxiety. Ethan had suggested meeting here after hours. Neutral ground where Derek might feel less formal, less like he was being counseled. Derek arrived in workout clothes, basketball under one arm. You said we could shoot around while talking? That was the idea. Ethan had changed too. Old sneakers, comfortable shirt. The gym lights buzzed slightly overhead, bright and institutional. They started passing the ball back and forth. Easy rhythm. No keeping score. Claire texted me, Derek said after a few minutes. Said she's willing to talk again, with you and Maya there. How does that feel? Weird. Like we failed the first time and now need supervision. Derek took a shot from the three-point line. It bounced off the rim. I really liked her, Ethan. Before everything went wrong. Ethan grabbed the rebound. What did you like? The way she laughed when she first sat down, kind of nervous but real. She made a joke about her shoes being too fancy for someone who usually wears sneakers. Derek caught the ball, Ethan passed back. I wanted to know more. Wanted to understand her, so I started asking questions. The questions I suggested. Some of them, yeah. Derek dribbled once, twice. But also my own. About her fears, her dreams, the big stuff. I thought, if we're doing this, might as well find out if we're compatible on what matters. And that felt like the right approach at the time. Derek stopped moving, held the ball against his hip. You know what the weird thing is? It did feel right. Felt like I was finally being authentic instead of making small talk that goes nowhere. But she looked more and more uncomfortable, and I couldn't figure out why. Ethan leaned against the wall, feeling its cold through his shirt. The gym held the day's warmth, but the cinder block behind him stayed cool. I think, he said carefully, you were being authentic, but maybe too fast. Like showing someone your entire photo album before you've introduced yourself. That's what Maya said, in the group text. Derek resumed dribbling. She said vulnerability is something you earn by being present first, that I was asking her to give me things she didn't know if she wanted to share yet. Do you think she's right? I don't know. Maybe? The ball echoed in the empty space. But also, how many dates do people go on where they just talk about nothing? Where they never get past the surface because nobody wants to risk being real? A lot of them. Exactly. So isn't it better to at least try? To risk making someone uncomfortable if it means you might actually connect? Ethan pulled out his phone, glanced at a message from Maya. She'd sent a photo of Claire laughing at something on TV captioned, "She's really okay, just needed time." Can I tell you something? Ethan said. Something I haven't told Maya yet? Derek stopped dribbling. Sure. My ex, the one I told you about. She left because I was too much. Too intense about understanding her. About making sure we were psychologically aligned. She said it felt like being studied instead of loved. Ethan rubbed his forehead. I thought I was building something real. She felt like a research subject. Jesus, Ethan. Yeah, he pushed off from the wall. So when I gave you those questions, when I encouraged you to go deep, I think part of me was trying to prove that approach could work, that my ex was wrong. Derek tossed him the ball. Ethan caught it, surprised. That's pretty messed up, man. I know. But also, Derek walked closer, also kind of human. We're all carrying stuff, trying to make sense of why things happened the way they did. Ethan took a shot. It went in clean, nothing but net. The sound echoed in the empty gym. Maya thinks we should help you and Claire try again, he said. But differently. Less structure, less pressure. And what do you think? I think I've been wrong about a lot of things. Ethan caught the ball as it bounced back to him, and I think maybe being wrong is okay if you're willing to learn from it. Derek smiled. That's very emotionally mature of you. Don't tell Maya. I have a reputation to maintain. They shot around for another 20 minutes, talking less, just moving in the cold, bright space until they were both breathing hard, and the weight of the earlier conversation had lifted slightly. Outside the gym windows, early evening had turned the sky deep blue, and the first stars were starting to show. Maya found Claire at the flower shop. It was late afternoon, the light turning everything amber and soft. The shop had been her mother's for 23 years, and walking in always felt like stepping into a memory. "Your mom's not here?" Claire looked up from the bucket of eucalyptus she'd been arranging. "Doctor's appointment. I told her I'd cover." Maya grabbed an apron from the hook. The shop smelled like roses and wet stems, like earth and something sweeter. "Didn't know you'd be here." "She called me this morning, said she needed help with an order." Claire trimmed a stem at an angle, the motion practiced. "I think she's matchmaking again." "She's always matchmaking. It's genetic." They worked in comfortable silence for a while. Claire had learned flower arranging from Maya's mother years ago, back when they'd first become friends. Maya had never picked it up. Too many variables. Too hard to control how things grew. "Derek texted me," Claire said eventually. "He apologized. Like really apologized. Said he pushed too hard and made me uncomfortable." Maya selected white roses from the cooler, their stems cold against her palms. "How did that feel?" "Surprisingly good. He actually listened to what I said, acknowledged it instead of defending himself." Claire added the eucalyptus to her arrangement. "Ethan helped him understand, I think, that the questions weren't the problem. The timing was." "They've been talking?" "A lot, apparently. Derek says Ethan's been really honest about where his approach comes from, about his own stuff." Claire glanced up. "How are things with you and Ethan?" Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. "There are no things with me and Ethan." "Right. You just accidentally discovered you've been intellectually sparring online for 3 months, and now you're coordinating counseling sessions for our failed date." "It's not counseling. It's—" Maya paused. "I don't know what it is." The shop door chimed. An older woman came in asking about orchids. Maya helped her while Claire continued working on the arrangement. When the customer left, the shop felt quieter, more intimate. "I wasn't ready," Claire said to the flowers, "for the date, for any of it. I said yes because you were excited, and because I thought maybe I should be ready. But sitting across from Derek, having him ask about my fears and my past, it just made everything feel too big, too fast." Maya set down the ribbon she'd been holding. "I'm sorry. I should have asked better questions. Should have made sure you wanted it for yourself." "I know you were trying to help." Claire looked up. "You always try to help. It's one of my favorite things about you. But sometimes, you help so hard that it's hard to say no." The words landed gently but firmly. Maya felt them settle in her chest. "I do that, don't I? Take over, make plans, design things until there's no room for anyone else to have input." "Not always, but sometimes." Claire came around the table, wiping her hands on her apron. "With the date, with your mom's shop, with— with what?" "With your own life, Maya. You're so busy creating perfect moments for everyone else. When do you just let yourself be messy?" Maya looked around the shop. Buckets of flowers in various stages of arrangement, order forms on the counter, the vintage register her mother refused to replace. Through the window, she could see the street where she'd grown up, the neighborhood that had changed while the shop stayed stubbornly the same. "The shop's losing money," Maya said quietly. "Has been for 2 years. Mom won't close it because it was Dad's gift to her, before the divorce, before everything fell apart." "What do you think she should do?" "I think she should let it go. I think holding on to something just because it used to be good doesn't make sense." Maya touched a rose petal, soft and already starting to brown at the edges. "But I also understand why she can't." Claire moved beside her. Outside, someone walked past with a dog. The light was fading faster now. Soon they'd need to turn on the overhead fluorescence that made everything look harsh and commercial. "Derek wants to try again," Claire said. "Not a date, just coffee. With you and Ethan there. He thinks maybe if we actually talk about what happened, instead of pretending it didn't matter, we might figure out if there's something worth exploring." "And what do you think?" "I think I'm terrified." Claire smiled slightly, "but also curious. He was kind of interesting, underneath all the interrogation." Maya laughed. It came out rougher than she expected. High praise. "It's a start." They went back to the flowers. Outside, the November evening pressed against the windows, And Maya thought about starts and endings and all the messy space between. The shop filled with the green scent of cut stems and the fading light of another day going gentle into early winter dark. Maya's phone lit up the dark bedroom. 11:47 p.m. She'd been lying awake anyway, thinking about the shop, about Claire, about the way Ethan had looked at her in the coffee shop when he said he remembered what she wrote. Ethan. Still awake? Maya. Unfortunately. You? Ethan. Grading papers. Well, avoiding grading papers. Thinking instead. Maya. Dangerous activity. Ethan. Says the person who designs emotional experiences for a living. She smiled at her phone screen. The conversation felt different than their forum debates. Lighter, more personal. Maya. What are you thinking about? The three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Ethan. Whether I've been doing everything wrong. Whether my entire philosophy about connection is just elaborate self-protection. Maya sat up in bed, pulling the blanket around her shoulders. The room held the night's cold. She could hear rain starting outside, soft against the window. Maya. That's pretty vulnerable for 11:50 p.m. At Ethan. It's easier in the dark, when I can't see your reaction. Something in Maya's chest tightened. She thought about the flower shop, about her mother holding on to something beautiful that was dying, about her own need to control and orchestrate and make everything perfect before letting anyone see. Maya, can I tell you something? Something I haven't admitted out loud? Ethan, please. Maya, I'm terrified that if I stop controlling things, if I stop trying to make everything beautiful and perfect, people will see that I'm just scared, that I don't actually know what I'm doing, that I'm making it up as I go. She hit send before she could take it back. Her heart beat hard against her ribs. The three dots appeared immediately. Ethan, that's the most honest thing you've ever said to me. Maya, does it change how you see me? Ethan, yes. Makes me like you more. Maya stared at the words, reread them. Her bedroom felt smaller suddenly, more intimate, like he was there in the dark with her instead of 8 blocks away in his own late-night solitude. Maya, we're both a mess, aren't we? Ethan, the messiest. Maya, and we've been giving relationship advice? Ethan, in our defense, we're excellent at theory. It's practice that defeats us. She laughed out loud. The sound felt strange in the quiet room. Maya. Claire wants to try again with Derek. Coffee. With us there. Ethan. Derek told me. Are you ready for that? Maya. Are you? Ethan. I asked first. Maya. I'm ready to try. To actually collaborate instead of just defending my position. Ethan. That's growth. Maya. Don't sound so surprised. Ethan. I'm not. You've always been willing to evolve. Even when we were arguing online, you'd concede points when they made sense, I noticed. Maya felt warmth spread through her chest despite the cold room. Maya, you noticed a lot, apparently. Ethan, you were hard not to notice. The rain picked up outside. Maya listened to it against glass, against the roof, filling the silence with soft percussion. Maya, I should let you get back to avoiding your papers. Ethan, probably, but this was better than Hamlet essays. Maya, much better. Ethan, Maya? Maya, yeah? Ethan, I'm glad we're not just usernames anymore. She smiled at her phone in the dark. Outside, the rain continued its gentle assault. Her room smelled like the lavender sachet on her nightstand, like comfort, like possibility. Maya, me too. The screen went dark. Maya set the phone down and lay back. Sleep felt closer now, and the rain sounded less lonely than it had an hour ago. Ethan's sisters showed up unannounced on Saturday morning with coffee and bagels and the determined expression that meant she had a plan. You're not working today, Sophie announced, setting the bag on his kitchen counter. We're having breakfast, and you're going to tell me what's going on. Nothing's going on. Ethan took the coffee she offered. Black, 2 sugars. She knew. I'm grading. Normal Saturday. It's December. You're caught up on grading. Sophie pulled out a chair at his small kitchen table. Also, you've been smiling at your phone. You never smile at your phone. I smile. At your phone? At 11 at night? Multiple times this week? She raised an eyebrow. That's new behavior. Ethan sat across from her. Through his apartment window, he could see the park across the street. Someone had set up a small Christmas tree near the playground. Premature, but cheerful. I've been talking to someone, he admitted. About work stuff. Work stuff makes you smile like that? It's complicated. Sophie bit into her bagel. She was 5 years younger, but acted like she'd been given responsibility for his emotional well-being at birth. Is this about Derek's disaster date? He told me about it. Said you're working with the other matchmaker to help them try again. Her name is Maya. Maya makes you smile at your phone? Ethan looked at his coffee. Steam rose in thin curls, disappearing into the morning air. His apartment had good light on Saturdays, made everything feel possible. We've been talking about philosophy, about our approaches to matchmaking. He paused. About other things, too. Other things like what? Like why we do this, why we care about helping people connect. Ethan met Sophie's eyes. She's not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone shallow, someone who prioritizes aesthetics over substance. He heard how that sounded, which was unfair. She's actually really thoughtful, just differently than I am. Sophie smiled. You like her? I respect her professional perspective. Ethan, you're 32. You can just say you like someone. He took a sip of coffee. Too hot still. It's complicated. We disagree on fundamental things. Like what? Like everything. She believes in creating moments. I believe in psychological compatibility. She thinks emotional atmosphere matters. I think honest questions matter more. And we're both probably right and wrong in different ways. Ethan set his cup down, which is uncomfortable. Sophie laughed. God, you're so you. Someone interesting shows up and you immediately make it an intellectual problem to solve. That's not, when's the last time you went on a date? Sophie interrupted. An actual date, not coordinating someone else's. Ethan looked away. Through the window, a couple walked past with a stroller, moving slowly. The baby probably dictating the pace. Not since Andrea left, he said quietly. 2 years ago. And you don't think that's related to why you've built this whole philosophy about understanding connection perfectly before attempting it? Andrea left because I was too much, too intense, too scared, Sophie finished. Too scared that if you didn't understand everything, you'd get hurt again. So you analyzed her until she felt like a case study instead of a person. The words hit harder than Ethan expected. He'd thought the same thing. Late at night, in the spaces between being certain about his approach. Maya said something similar, he admitted, about how my questions can feel like tests instead of genuine curiosity. She sounds smart. She is. Sophie reached across the table and touched his hand. So, what are you going to do about it? About what? About the fact that you like her, that you smile at your phone when she texts, that you're sitting here defending her to me, even while saying you disagree about everything. Ethan pulled his hand back, picked up his coffee. It had cooled enough to drink now. I'm going to help facilitate Derek and Claire's conversation, he said, and try not to make everything more complicated. Sophie shook her head. You're impossible. I'm realistic. You're scared. Outside, the morning light caught the Christmas tree ornaments. They spun slightly in the wind, throwing small rainbows across the playground equipment. Yeah, Ethan finally said. That too. Maya wasn't supposed to be at Powell's that afternoon. She'd planned to work on her mom's shop accounts. Instead, she'd found herself driving downtown, parking near the bookstore, telling herself she just needed to clear her head. The store smelled like old paper and possibility. She wandered through fiction first, then psychology, then, Maya? She turned. Ethan stood 3 feet away holding a book on attachment theory. He looked as surprised as she felt. I didn't, he started. I wasn't, she said simultaneously. They both stopped. The bookstore's ambient noise filled the space between them. Soft conversations, pages turning, someone's phone ringing in the distance. I come here sometimes when I need to think, Maya finally said. Me too. Ethan gestured around them. Derek and Claire's meeting is tomorrow. I've been trying to figure out the right approach. Any conclusions? Several, all contradictory. Maya almost smiled. That's honest. I'm practicing. He glanced at the book in his hands. What brings you to the psychology section? I was in fiction, then I wandered. She moved closer, reading the spine. Attachment theory? Isn't that your whole thing? It's one thing, not my whole thing. He set the book back on the shelf, although maybe it has been. I'm trying to expand my perspective. Something in his tone made Maya study his face. He looked tired, not physically, more like the mental exhaustion that came from questioning foundational beliefs. Want to get coffee? She asked. There's a place on the third floor. I know. It's my favorite thinking spot. They climbed the stairs together. The cafe was busy, but they found a table near the window overlooking the street. Maya ordered tea this time. Ethan got plain coffee. Sophie came by this morning, Ethan said once they'd settled. My sister. She asked when I last went on a date. That's direct. She's younger, but acts like she raised me. He wrapped his hands around his cup. I told her not since my ex left, 2 years ago. Maya felt the admission land, personal. More than they'd shared even in their late-night texts. Andrea, she said quietly. You mentioned her, in the parking lot. Yeah, we were together 3 years. I thought we were building towards something. Turns out I was the only one doing the building. His jaw tightened slightly. She left while I was planning to propose. Said I treated her like a hypothesis to test instead of a person to love. Maya set down her tea. Outside, rain had started again. People hurried past with umbrellas and newspapers held over their heads. That must have destroyed you, she said. It did, but also, Ethan looked at her, also made me question everything. If I could miss the signs that badly, if I could be that wrong about someone I thought I understood, what good was any of my analysis? So you doubled down, got more systematic, made it a science. Exactly, he rubbed his forehead. And then I met you, someone who does everything differently, who creates instead of analyzes. And every time we'd argue online, you'd make points I couldn't dismiss, make me question whether my approach was about understanding or about control. Maya felt her pulse in her throat. The cafe had gotten louder, more people arriving, seeking shelter from the rain. But Ethan's voice cut through the noise. I'm scared, she admitted, that my need to make everything perfect is just elaborate running away. That if I let things be messy, if I stop orchestrating, everything will fall apart the way my parents' marriage did. I know, you told me, in your text. That was late at night, felt less real somehow. It felt real to me. Ethan leaned forward slightly. Sophie said something this morning. She said I analyze people until they feel like case studies, that I'm so scared of being hurt again that I won't risk being present. Is she right? Probably. He smiled slightly. You? Probably. Maya picked up her tea, still too hot. We're both running, just in different directions. So what do we do about it? I don't know. She met his eyes. But I think maybe admitting it is a start. They sat with that. The rain continued outside. Someone dropped a book somewhere in the store, the sound sharp and then absorbed by all the paper surrounding them. Can I tell you something? Ethan asked. Please. I'm glad we're here. In person, not just on screens. Maya felt warmth spread through her chest. Me too. They stayed another hour, talking about books, about Portland, about nothing and everything. When they finally left, the rain had stopped, and the evening air smelled clean and new. Walking to their cars, their hands brushed once. Neither pulled away. They walked without destination after leaving the bookstore. The rain had left the streets slick and reflective. Streetlights doubled in the wet pavement, making the city feel larger, more complicated. Can we keep walking? Ethan asked when they reached her car. I'm not ready to go home yet. Maya nodded. They turned toward the waterfront. Saturday evening had emptied the downtown somewhat, most people seeking indoor warmth and dinner. They walked side by side, not quite touching. When Andrea left, Ethan started, then stopped, started again. When Andrea left, she did it via text. We'd been together 3 years, lived together for one, and she ended it in 140 characters. Maya felt the pain in his voice. She didn't reach for him, didn't try to fix it, just walked beside him and listened. I'd bought a ring the week before, had this whole plan. Dinner at the place we'd had our first date. I was going to ask about her life goals first. Make sure we were still aligned before proposing. Make sure it made sense psychologically. You were going to interview her before proposing? I was going to ensure compatibility. He stuffed his hands in his pockets. See why she left? They reached the waterfront. The Willamette River moved dark and quiet below them. Across the water, lights from the east side reflected in broken patterns. The text said she couldn't do it anymore, Ethan continued. Couldn't be studied, couldn't live with someone who approached love like a research project. She said she needed someone who could just feel, who could be impulsive and messy and wrong sometimes. Did you respond? I tried, called her, texted back, showed up at her new apartment with questions. Why? When? What did I miss? How could I fix it? He laughed hollow. Even then I was analyzing. Even then I couldn't just feel the loss. I had to understand it. Maya stopped walking. Ethan stopped too, turning to face her. The wind off the river was cold. She could see him shivering slightly. After she wouldn't talk to me, I dove into research, attachment theory, relationship psychology, communication patterns. I read everything, took notes, built frameworks. I thought if I could understand what went wrong, I could prevent it next time. But there hasn't been a next time. No, he met her eyes, because if I understand how it breaks, I also understand how badly it can hurt. And I decided understanding was safer than attempting. Maya felt something crack open in her chest. This man who'd argued with her about vulnerability and honesty and deep questions, he'd been protecting himself the whole time, building intellectual walls to keep out the pain he'd already experienced. So when you gave Derek all those questions, she said slowly, when you pushed for psychological intimacy on a first date, I was trying to prove Andrea wrong, trying to show that my approach could work, that someone could handle depth and honesty from the beginning. He rubbed his face. Instead, I just proved her point, that I turn people into problems to solve. You don't do that with me, don't I? He gestured between them. We've spent weeks debating philosophy, theory, approach. How much of that is genuine connection versus me intellectually engaging to avoid actual emotional risk? Maya stepped closer. The wind caught her hair and she pushed it back. I think we started with intellectual engagement, but it's not just that anymore, is it? Ethan looked at her, really looked, and she saw something in his expression she hadn't seen before. Uncertainty, want, fear all tangled together. No, he said quietly. It's not just that. The river sounds filled the space between them. Water against pylons, wind through bridge cables, the city continuing around them while they stood still. I'm terrified, Maya admitted, that if I let myself want this, want you, I'll do what I always do, try to control it, design it, make it perfect until there's no room for anything real. And I'm terrified that if I let myself want this, I'll analyze it until it's dead, until you feel like another case study, another hypothesis to test. So we're both disaster waiting to happen. Absolutely. But we're honest about it now. That's new. Ethan smiled slightly. Being honest. Maya reached out and touched his arm, just briefly. The contact sent warmth through her cold fingers. Tomorrow we help Derek and Claire. We try to create space without controlling it, questions without interrogation. We try to find the middle ground between our approaches. And after tomorrow? After tomorrow, Maya took a breath. After tomorrow, maybe we try to find middle ground for ourselves too. Ethan covered her hand with his. His skin was cold, but his grip was warm. I'd like that. Even though it's terrifying, especially because it's terrifying. They stood there on the waterfront as the evening deepened into night. The city lights reflected in the river, and neither of them pulled away. Maya texted him Sunday afternoon. Can you meet me somewhere? I want to show you something. Ethan. Where? Maya. My mom's flower shop. 2847 NE Alberta. 5 p.m.? He arrived exactly on time. She watched through the shop window as he parked, got out, looked at the storefront with its faded sign and window displays that hadn't changed in 20 years. She opened the door before he knocked. "Thanks for coming." "Of course." He stepped inside and she watched him take it in. The wooden counter worn smooth from decades of transactions. The old register. Buckets of flowers in varying states of freshness. The smell, earth and roses and eucalyptus and thyme. "This is where you grew up?" he asked. "Not literally, but kind of." Maya locked the door behind them. The shop was closed Sundays, but she had keys. Had always had keys. "My parents opened this together, year before I was born. It was my dad's gift to my mom." She moved through the space, trailing her fingers along the counter. Ethan followed, giving her space but staying close enough that she could feel his presence. "They were happy here," Maya continued. "Or I thought they were. I have these memories of them working together. My dad doing arrangements while my mom handled customers. They had this rhythm, this easy partnership. What changed? I don't know. I was 12 when it started falling apart. Old enough to notice, but too young to understand." She stopped at the back counter where her mother kept the supply records. They started arguing about money, about the business, about everything. My dad wanted to expand. My mom wanted to keep it small. He said she was playing it safe. She said he was being reckless. Ethan leaned against the counter, watching her. The late afternoon light came through the windows at an angle, turning the dust motes visible, making everything look softer than it was. Eventually, my dad left. Not just the shop, the whole thing. Moved to Seattle. Sent child support, but never visited. Just gone. Maya picked up a pair of pruning shears, set them back down. My mom kept the shop, even when the neighborhood changed, even when the rent tripled and the customers shifted to online ordering. She kept it because letting it go felt like admitting it was all a mistake. And now it's failing. Now it's dying. Slowly. She knows it. I know it. But she can't let go. Maya turned to face him. And I've been exactly the same. Holding on to control because I watched what happens when you don't. When you just let things unfold, naturally and messily. They end. Ethan didn't say anything. Just listened. The shop was quiet around them. Through the window, she could see people walking past, living their Sunday evenings, unaware of the small tragedy playing out in this flower shop that had outlived its time. "Every time I design a date," Maya said, "every time I create this perfect atmosphere with the right lighting and the right music and the right everything, I'm trying to build something that won't fall apart. Something that can't end the way my parents' shop is ending, the way their marriage ended." She moved to the window display. Old glass vases that her mother refused to replace. Some of them had flowers, carnations going brown at the edges, roses that should have been thrown out days ago. But it's a lie, isn't it? This idea that I can design lasting connection, that if I just control enough variables, people won't hurt each other, won't leave, won't end up like my parents. "Maya, I'm so tired, Ethan." She didn't look at him. Couldn't. "I'm so tired of trying to make everything perfect, of believing that if I just work hard enough, care enough, pay enough attention, I can prevent pain." She heard him move, felt him come up behind her, not touching, just present. "My mom's selling the shop," Maya said quietly. "She told me last week. Found a buyer. It'll be a yoga studio by February." She finally turned around. "And I've been trying to talk her out of it, trying to convince her I can fix it, can save it. But the truth is, it's time. The shop had its moment. It was beautiful. And now it's over." "And you're afraid," Ethan said softly, "that if you can't save the shop, if you can't prevent endings, then you can't save anything, can't prevent any ending." "Yes," the word came out broken. "Because if I couldn't help my parents, if I couldn't keep them together, even though I was right here watching it happen, what makes me think I can help anyone else? What makes me think I know anything about love?" Ethan reached out and took her hand. His fingers were warm, real, present. "You help because you care," he said. "Not because you have all the answers. You create beauty because the world needs it, not because you can make things last forever." But what if caring isn't enough? Then it isn't. But that doesn't make it not worth doing. Maya felt something give way in her chest. The careful control she'd maintained, through the conversation, through the evening, through the weeks of being so carefully professional, it cracked and broke, and she let herself lean forward into him. Ethan wrapped his arms around her. She could smell his coat, cold air and something warm underneath. Could feel his heartbeat against her cheek. Could hear the shop around them settling into evening quiet. "I'm scared of this," she whispered. "Of us. Of wanting something I can't control." "I know," his voice rumbled in his chest. "Me too. But you're here anyway. So are you." They stood there in the dying light of her mother's shop, surrounded by flowers going past their prime, by evidence of something that had been beautiful and was ending. And Maya thought, maybe that was okay. Maybe endings didn't mean the beauty hadn't been real. When they finally pulled apart, it was almost dark. Ethan kept her hand in his. "What happens now?" she asked. "Tomorrow we help Claire and Derek. We try to do better. And after that," he smiled, "after that, maybe we try to help ourselves." Maya nodded. Outside, the streetlights had come on. Through the window, the world continued its movement. And for the first time in weeks, Maya felt like maybe she didn't need to control it. The last light faded, and they stood together in the gentle dark. Maya hadn't texted Ethan in 3 days. She'd typed messages, dozens of them, but deleted every one before sending. About Sunday, delete. "I've been thinking," delete. "That was intense," delete. Her apartment felt too warm despite the December cold outside. She turned up the heat but couldn't shake the chill that had settled in her chest since leaving the flower shop. Since pulling away from Ethan and driving home alone while the implications of everything they'd admitted sat heavy in her car. She wanted him. That was the terrifying part. Wanted him in a way that had nothing to do with compatibility metrics or atmospheric design. Wanted him messily, imperfectly, in a way she couldn't control or orchestrate. And that want felt like standing at the edge of something high with no safety net below. Her phone sat on the coffee table, silent, dark. She wondered if Ethan was doing the same thing, typing and deleting, wanting and pulling back. Scared that moving forward meant risking everything they'd built in their carefully intellectual friendship. Because that's what it had been, she realized. Even their arguments online had been safe, abstract. They could debate vulnerability without being vulnerable, could discuss emotional risk without actually risking anything. But Sunday in the shop, that had been real. That had been her standing in the ruins of her family's beautiful failure and admitting she was terrified to let anything unfold without her careful management. That had been Ethan holding her while the light died, and neither of them knowing what came next. Maya stood and moved to the window. The courtyard lights were on again. They'd added more for Christmas. White lights wrapped around bare branches, making the December trees look less dead and more intentionally dormant. She picked up her phone, set it down, picked it up again. Her mother had called earlier. The shop sale was final, closing in January. She'd sounded relieved more than sad. "Sometimes things end, honey," she'd said again, "and we get to choose what we carry forward." Maya looked at her phone screen, at the text thread with Ethan that ended 3 days ago with his simple, "Good night, thank you for trusting me." She could carry forward the safety, keep their connection theoretical, show up tomorrow for Derek and Claire's meeting, and maintain professional boundaries. Protect herself from the possibility that this, whatever this was, could end like everything else. Or she could risk it. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Finally, she set the phone down again. Not yet. She wasn't ready yet. Outside, the lights continued their quiet glow against the December dark. Ethan had opened the text thread with Maya 47 times in 3 days. He knew. He'd counted. Each time, he'd stared at the blank message field. Each time, he'd closed it without typing anything. His apartment was too quiet. Sunday evening played on repeat in his head. The flower shop, the fading light, Maya's confession, the way she'd felt when he held her. Real, solid, scared in the same ways he was scared. And then the way they'd pulled apart when someone walked past the window. The way she'd said, "I should go," and he'd said, "Okay." And they'd walked to their cars and driven different directions, and hadn't spoken since. He'd blown it, or she'd pulled back, or they'd both panicked simultaneously. Sophie had texted yesterday, "How's Maya?" He'd responded, "Fine, I think." Sophie, "You think? Have you talked to her?" Ethan, "Not since Sunday." Sophie, "Why not?" He hadn't answered, hadn't known how to explain that Sunday had cracked something open in him that felt too big to examine. That holding Maya in that dying flower shop had made him want things he'd sworn off after Andrea, had made him want to try, despite every analytical part of his brain screaming about risks and probabilities and the likelihood of pain. Now he sat at his kitchen table, grading papers he'd already graded, writing comments he'd already written, doing anything to avoid the silence where his thoughts got too loud. Tomorrow they were supposed to meet with Derek and Claire, he and Maya, together. Creating space for two people to talk honestly about a failed first attempt. The irony wasn't lost on him. Two people scared of their own connection facilitating someone else's potential one. His phone sat face up on the table, dark, silent, mocking him with its lack of notifications. He could text her. Just something simple, professional. "See you tomorrow at 2? Keep it about Derek and Claire." Maintain dividing boundaries, but that felt like lying, like pretending Sunday hadn't happened, like denying that they'd both admitted their fears and held each other in the almost dark and wanted something neither of them knew how to reach for. Ethan stood and moved to the window. His Christmas tree, small, minimal, purchased yesterday in a fit of optimism he didn't quite understand, sat in the corner. He'd put lights on it, but no ornaments yet. Sophie had laughed. "That's very you," she'd said. "All potential, no commitment." She wasn't wrong. His phone buzzed. Ethan lunged for it with an embarrassing lack of dignity. "Derek, still on for tomorrow?" Claire's nervous but ready. "Not Maya." "Of course not Maya." Ethan, "Still on, 2 p.m. Coffee shop on Hawthorne." Derek, "Thanks, man, for everything. Even if it doesn't work out, this has been good. Made me think about things." Ethan stared at the message. Made me think about things. That's what Maya had done too. Made him think. Made him question. Made him want to be braver than his carefully constructed philosophy allowed. He opened the text thread with Maya one more time. This time he typed, "Tomorrow at 2. I'll be there. Hope you will too." He hit send before he could overthink it, before he could analyze and revise and make it perfect. The message showed as delivered, then read. 3 dots appeared. Ethan's heart hammered against his ribs. The dots disappeared. He waited. The apartment felt colder, the silence heavier. His phone stayed dark. Outside, December pressed against the windows with its early nightfall and patient cold. Maya's phone rang at noon. Claire's name flashed on the screen. "Hey," Maya answered, stirring her coffee. She'd been at the kitchen counter for an hour, staring at Ethan's text. "Tomorrow at 2. I'll be there. Hope you will too. I need to tell you something." Claire's voice sounded light, different. "Before this afternoon." "Okay." Maya set down her spoon. "Are you backing out?" "No, the opposite, actually." Claire laughed. A real laugh, not the nervous kind. "Derek called me. We've been texting all week, talking about everything, about the date, about what went wrong, about what we both want." Maya felt something shift in her chest. And it's been really good, Maya. Like, really good. He's funny when he's not trying to be deep and thoughtful, and he actually listens when I tell him something made me uncomfortable. That's..." Maya paused. "Wait, you've been talking all week and didn't tell me?" "I wanted to see if it was real first. If it could exist without you and Ethan orchestrating." Claire's voice softened. "And it can. We're different than we were on the date. More honest, less performing." Maya moved to her window. The courtyard looked gray under midday clouds. "So you don't need this afternoon. The facilitated conversation." "We do, actually, but not for us." Claire paused. "Maya, Derek and I have been talking about you two. About how you both set up this disaster to help us, but you're the ones who actually need help." "That's not..." "You're terrified of him," Claire interrupted gently. "Terrified of wanting something you can't design or control. And according to Derek, Ethan's doing the same thing. Analyzing your connection to death instead of just being in it. Maya closed her eyes. The truth of it landed like cold water. So here's what Derek and I decided, Claire continued. We're still meeting you at the coffee shop, but we're not going to need much facilitation. We're going to talk. You and Ethan are going to watch two people be honestly messy with each other, and then maybe you'll both get the courage to do the same. Claire, I love you, Maya. You're my best friend, but you need to stop hiding behind making things perfect for other people. Claire's voice was firm but kind. The disaster date was the best thing that could have happened to me. Made me realize I was going through motions. Made me figure out what I actually wanted. And part of what I wanted was to stop letting you design my life. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. I know you didn't. You were trying to help. But sometimes help looks like stepping back, letting things be messy, trusting that people can figure it out. Is that what you're doing now, with Derek? Yeah, we're figuring it out, slowly, with mistakes. Claire laughed again. It's terrifying and imperfect, and I actually really like him, Maya. Like genuinely. Not because someone designed it that way. Maya wiped her eyes. I'm happy for you. Be happy for yourself, too. Let yourself want something without knowing how it ends. Claire paused. Ethan's a good guy. Derek says he's been a disaster all week, missing you. He hasn't texted, because he's scared, same as you. Claire's voice gentled. So stop being scared together and just show up for the meeting, for each other, for the possibility that maybe some things don't need to be perfect to be real. After they hung up, Maya stood at her window for a long time. The gray afternoon pressed against the glass. Her coffee had gone cold. The apartment felt empty in a way that had nothing to do with being alone. She picked up her phone and looked at Ethan's message again. This time she replied, I'll be there. His response came immediately. Good. That was all. Just one word. But Maya smiled anyway. Outside, the clouds shifted, and a single ray of light broke through, turning the wet courtyard gold for just a moment before the gray returned. The coffee shop smelled like cinnamon and espresso. Christmas music played low through the speakers, the kind that was all instrumental, more atmospheric than festive. Maya arrived exactly at 2. Ethan was already there, standing near the counter, hands in his coat pockets. Their eyes met across the space. Something passed between them, acknowledgement, nervousness, relief. Hi, she said, reaching him. Hi. He looked like he wanted to say more. Didn't. Claire and Derek texted. They're running 5 minutes late. Okay. Maya ordered tea she didn't want. Ethan got his usual black coffee. They found a table near the back, more private than their first meeting here, more deliberately chosen. They sat across from each other. The table felt both too wide and not wide enough. I'm sorry I didn't text back right away, Maya started, to your message yesterday. It's okay. Ethan wrapped his hands around his cup. I almost didn't send it. Wrote and deleted it about 10 times. Me too. Over the last 3 days. She met his eyes. I've been scared since Sunday. Me too. Of this. Of us. Of wanting something I can't control, he finished. I know. The door chimed. Claire and Derek walked in together, not touching, but close, comfortable. They spotted Maya and Ethan and waved, ordered drinks, took their time approaching. When they finally settled at the table, Claire next to Maya, Derek next to Ethan, the energy was different than Maya expected. Less nervous, more sure. So, Derek started, smiling at Claire, we've been talking, a lot actually. Since the disaster date, Claire added, which we're both calling the disaster date now. It's become a joke. A good joke, Derek clarified, because it was a disaster, but also kind of necessary. Maya looked between them. Ethan did the same. Neither of them spoke. We wanted to meet today to say thank you, Claire continued, both of you, for trying to help, even though your approaches were totally incompatible and probably made everything worse initially. Wow, thanks, Ethan said dryly. Let me finish. Claire smiled. You made it worse because you were both so busy defending your philosophies that you forgot about us, about what we actually needed, which was space to be confused and unsure and not ready. But, Derek interjected, the fact that you cared enough to try, that mattered. And watching you two argue in the parking lot while we were both hiding inside, that kind of broke something open. Made us realize this whole thing was less about us and more about you. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. That's not... It is, though. Claire reached across and squeezed Maya's hand. You were trying to create a perfect moment because you're scared of messy ones. Ethan was pushing for psychological depth because he's scared of surface-level connection that might not last. And Derek and I were just two people who needed to figure out if we liked each other, which we do, by the way. You do? Maya looked at Claire. Actually, he's weird and asks too many questions sometimes and makes terrible jokes, but he's also kind and really listens and doesn't pretend to be someone he's not. Claire looked at Derek. And I'm apparently attracted to that. Who knew? Derek grinned. She's defensive and hides behind humor and took 3 days to admit she thought I was cute. But when she actually talks, when she lets herself be honest, she's incredible. They looked at each other with something that made Maya's chest tight, something real and uncertain and brave. So, Derek turned to Ethan, the disaster date worked, just not the way anyone planned. It made us both realize we were performing for you two instead of connecting with each other. And once we stopped performing, once we just texted honestly without the pressure, it got really good really fast. We're not saying we're in love, Claire added quickly, or that this is definitely going somewhere. We're just saying we like each other. We want to keep exploring it, without help. Without matchmaking, Derek agreed. No offense. None taken, Ethan said quietly. He glanced at Maya. I'm actually relieved. Me too, Maya admitted. I'm really happy for you both. Good, Claire stood, because now Derek and I are going to leave. We have actual plans. A walk, maybe dinner. No itinerary. Very spontaneous, Derek teased, standing too. Maya would be horrified. I'm learning to be okay with spontaneous, Maya said, and meant it. After they left, the coffee shop felt quieter, more intimate. Maya and Ethan sat across from each other with half-full cups and the weight of everything unsaid. So, Ethan finally spoke, they're good. They're really good. And we're terrified. Yeah, Maya took a breath. The coffee shop sounds continued around them. Espresso machine hissling, conversations layering, Christmas music building to something gentle and unresolved. Can I tell you something? She asked. Please. My mom closed the shop officially yesterday, signed papers, came home and cried, then called me and said she felt free for the first time in years. Ethan waited, listening, the way he did, the way that made her feel heard. And I realized, Maya's voice caught, I realized I've been holding on to control because I thought letting go meant everything falling apart. But maybe it doesn't. Maybe sometimes letting go is what makes space for something new. Like what? Ethan's voice was careful, hopeful. Like this. Whatever this is. Maya met his eyes. I don't want to design this, don't want to orchestrate it. I just want to see what happens. Yeah, even if it's messy. Especially if it's messy. Ethan smiled. Really smiled. That's the least Maya Foster thing I've ever heard. I'm trying something new. The afternoon lights shifted outside. The Christmas music changed to something slower, and they sat together in the imperfect moment, neither of them running adduction. Maya texted him at 7 p.m., 3 days after the coffee shop. Are you free tomorrow night? Ethan. Yes. Why? Maya. I want to try something. Meet me at Laurelhurst Park, 6 p.m., main entrance. Ethan. What are we doing? Maya. I don't know yet. The uncertainty in that statement felt revolutionary. Ethan arrived at 6 exactly. Maya was already there, sitting on a bench near the entrance. She wore jeans and a heavy jacket. Practical. Not the carefully chosen outfits he'd seen her wear before. Hi, she said, standing when she spotted him. Hi, he looked around. So, what's the plan? There isn't one. Maya gestured toward the path. I thought we could walk, see what happens. That's very unlike you. I know, it's terrifying. They started walking. The park was mostly empty, too cold for casual visitors. Their breath fogged in the December evening. The trees were bare, their branches dark against the dimming sky. "I've been thinking," Maya said after a few minutes of quiet, "about what Claire said, about how I design things to death, about how I need everything perfect before I let it exist. And, and I realized I've never just been on a date, a real one, where I didn't know how it would go, where I couldn't control the outcome." She glanced at him. "I thought maybe you could teach me." "Teach you what?" "How to be uncomfortable, how to not know what comes next." Ethan stopped walking. "Maya, I'm the last person who should teach anyone that. I analyze everything. I plan and prepare but you don't design. You don't stage manage. You might overthink, but you don't orchestrate." She faced him. "Show me what it's like to just be present, even if it's awkward, even if it's not perfect." The park path curved ahead of them. A dog barked somewhere in the distance. The cold bit at Ethan's face, but he barely noticed. "Okay," he said, "but I'm not good at this either, at just existing without analyzing. So we'll both be bad at it together." They walked on, no destination, no plan, just movement through the December evening. "Tell me something true," Ethan said after a while. "Something you wouldn't normally share." "I hate coffee," Maya admitted. "I order it because it feels adult and professional, but I actually think it tastes like dirt." Ethan laughed. "You order tea half the time anyway." "I know, I'm working on it," she smiled. "Your turn. Something true." "I'm terrified of you." The admission hung in the cold air. Maya stopped walking. "Of me? Why?" "Because you make me want things I swore off. Because every time we talk, you challenge me to be braver than I am. Because," he paused, "because I could fall for you very easily, and that scares the hell out of me." Maya's eyes were wide in the fading light. "That's pretty vulnerable for a Wednesday evening." "You asked for true." "I did." She stepped closer. "Can I tell you something true?" "Please." "I think I'm already falling." Her voice came out quieter than before. "And it's nothing like I planned. Nothing like I designed in my head. It's messy and uncertain, and I don't know what happens next. And that's terrifying?" "Yes, but also kind of amazing." They stood there on the path. The park continued around them, trees moving in the wind, the distant sound of traffic, the cold working its way through their layers. Nothing about the moment was designed. Nothing was orchestrated. "I don't have a next move planned," Ethan admitted. "Usually I'd know what to say, what to do, but right now I'm just here, present, scared, wanting you." "That's pretty perfect, actually." "Is it?" "Yeah." Maya reached up and touched his face. Her hand was cold. "The most perfect thing is that it's not perfect at all." He kissed her then, not planned, not analyzed, just action. Her lips were cold and then warm. She tasted like the mint gum she'd been chewing. Her hands came up to his collar, pulling him closer. When they pulled apart, both breathing hard, the park had gotten darker, colder, more real. "So," Maya said, slightly breathless. "No plan, no structure. What now?" "There's a food cart a few blocks from here. Terrible gyros. Want one?" "That sounds absolutely terrible." "Is that a yes?" "That's a yes." They walked toward the park exit. Hands found each other halfway. Neither of them pulled away. The evening settled around them. Imperfect, unplanned, exactly right. Maya woke to morning light and the smell of coffee. She blinked against the brightness, orienting herself. Ethan's apartment, his bed. They'd talked until 3 a.m. after the terrible gyros, and she'd fallen asleep mid-sentence. She found him in the kitchen making breakfast. 2 mugs sat on the counter, one with coffee, one with tea. "You made tea," she said from the doorway. He turned, smiling. "I pay attention." "Apparently." She moved to the counter, picking up the warm mug. Perfect temperature. "So this is the morning after." "Technically the morning after we kissed in a park and ate bad food and talked until you fell asleep mid-discussion about whether dogs dream. I have a firm position on that topic." "I know. You were very passionate." He poured himself coffee. How do you feel? Maya considered. Weirdly calm. I thought I'd wake up panicking, overthinking everything, making lists of how this could go wrong. And? And I'm just here, with you, in your kitchen, drinking tea. She smiled. It's nice. Just nice? Very nice. Exceptionally nice. She moved closer. I like your apartment. It's very you. Meaning? Meaning it's organized but comfortable. Thought out but not rigid. Books everywhere. Ethan looked around like seeing it for the first time. I've lived here 4 years. Never really thought about it. That's because you live in your head, not your space. Fair. He leaned against the counter. Morning light came through the window behind him, turning his hair slightly copper at the edges. Can I ask you something? Go ahead. What happens now, with us? The question sat between them. Maya felt the old instinct rise. To plan, to design, to create a structure that would keep everything safe and contained. But she pushed it down. I don't know, she said honestly. I'd like to keep doing this, whatever this is, seeing what happens. No timeline? No expectations? Is that terrible? Does that make you anxious? Actually, Ethan set down his coffee. Actually, it's kind of liberating. I kept trying to analyze what we were building, predict the outcome, and it was exhausting. So we just continue? We continue. He reached for her hand. Date, talk, figure it out as we go. That's very unstructured. I know, feels weird, but good weird. Very good weird. Maya squeezed his hand. His fingers were warm from the coffee mug. Solid, real. I need to tell you something. Okay. The shop closed officially last week. My mom's moving the last things out this weekend. Maya took a breath. And I'm going to help her. Going to actually let her close that chapter without trying to fix it or save it or make it into something it's not anymore. That's big. It is. And I'm going to keep the flower vase. The one my dad gave her when they opened. She wants me to have it. Maya's voice caught slightly. And I'm going to put it in my apartment and fill it with whatever flowers I want. Not perfect arrangements, just whatever speaks to me. Ethan pulled her closer. That's very symbolic. Too symbolic? No, perfect amount of symbolic. They stood in his kitchen while the morning continued around them. Traffic sounds from the street, a neighbor's door closing, the coffee maker clicking off automatically. This is scary, Maya admitted. Not knowing how it goes, not having a plan. Terrifying, Ethan agreed. But I'm here anyway. Me too. Even though it might not work, even though it might not work, she looked up at him. But also, maybe it will. Maybe trying is enough. That's very optimistic for you. I'm experimenting with optimism. He kissed her forehead, soft, easy, like he'd done it 100 times before, instead of this being only the second time his lips touched her skin. Want to get breakfast? He asked. Real breakfast, not my terrible toast. Your toast isn't terrible. It's pretty terrible. Okay, it's terrible, she smiled. Let's get breakfast. They got ready slowly. No rush. Maya borrowed his hoodie because hers was still in her car. It smelled like him, something clean and warm and unfamiliar. Walking to the cafe down the street, their hands found each other again. The December morning was cold but bright, and neither of them was running from it. The coffee shop had become theirs, without either of them planning it. Maya sat at their usual table, corner spot, good light, view of the street. Ethan was at the counter ordering. She knew what he'd get: black coffee, almond croissant. She'd already ordered Earl Grey tea, the same. 3 months had passed since the park, since the kiss, since they'd both decided to try this thing without analyzing it to death or designing it to perfection. It had been messy. They'd argued about big things, how much to plan versus how much to let unfold, about whether spontaneity could coexist with thoughtfulness. They'd argued about small things, whose apartment to stay at, whether to tell their friends they were serious, how to define serious anyway. But they'd also laughed, a lot, more than Maya expected. Ethan was funny in ways his serious exterior didn't advertise. Dry observations, perfectly timed deadpan, the kind of humor that snuck up on her. and they'd learned each other. The way Ethan needed quiet mornings before he could talk. The way Maya needed to move, to walk or clean or arrange things when processing emotion. The way they were both still scared sometimes, but choosing to stay anyway. Claire texted, Ethan said, setting down their order and sliding into the booth across from her. She and Derek are officially dating, like announced it to their families dating. That's great, Maya smiled genuinely. How's Derek handling it? Nervous, excited. He asked if I thought it was too fast. What'd you say? I said I have no idea what fast or slow means anymore, that everyone's different. Ethan took a sip of coffee. Then I told him to stop asking me for advice and just trust himself. Growth. Maya reached across and touched his hand. I'm proud of you. I learned from the best. Through the window, Portland's March afternoon looked almost spring-like. The trees were starting to bud. People walked past in lighter jackets. The gray was lifting gradually, the way it did every year around this time. On the table, tucked between the salt shaker and napkin dispenser, sat a small vase. Maya's vase, the one from her mother's shop. She'd started bringing it places, filling it with whatever flowers caught her eye. Today it held daffodils, bright yellow, slightly crooked in their arrangement. Perfect. How's your mom? Ethan asked. Good. She started taking painting classes. Says she should have done it years ago. Maya traced the vase's rim. She's happy, really happy. Happier than I've seen her in years. And you? I'm good too. She looked up at him. Really good, actually. Even without a 5-year plan? Especially without a 5-year plan. Ethan smiled. That full smile she'd learned meant he was genuinely content. Sophie keeps asking when she can officially meet you, not just run into you at my place. I'd like that. I'd like to meet the person who knows all your embarrassing stories. She has so many, it's a problem. I'm counting on it. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The coffee shop hummed around them. Familiar, easy. Maya thought about the parking lot where they'd first argued, about the flower shop where she'd admitted her fears, about the park where they'd kissed without planning it. All those moments had led here, to March sunshine and crooked daffodils, and knowing someone well enough that silence felt like connection instead of absence. I love you, Maya said, simply, no fanfare, no perfect moment orchestrated, just truth. Ethan's eyes widened slightly, then softened. I love you too. I know it's only been 3 months. Doesn't feel like only. He squeezed her hand. Feels right. Yeah, it does. Outside, someone walked past with a dog. The daffodils caught the light and glowed warmer, and Maya thought about her mother's words. Sometimes things end, and we choose what to carry forward. She'd chosen this messy, imperfect, unplanned love, and it was the best choice she'd ever made. The afternoon light stretched longer, and they sat together in its golden weight.